ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another new edition of Africa Today, where we may get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we will start off with our major top stories and reports. Egypt has a number of trade agreements that link it with 55 African states, aiming to increase economic cooperation. We have more details in this report.
As Egypt always seeks to create more cooperation and trade independence with other countries in the African continent, there are a number of economic and trade agreements that plays this role. Egypt has a number of trade agreements that link it with 55 African states, aiming to increase economic cooperation. Cairo currently working to finish the linkage between the northern tip of the continent with the southern top through several projects, atop of which is a road between Cairo and Cape Town, South Africa's capital city. This road to facilitate the transfer of goods and products between African countries, which was one of the biggest obstacles facing businessmen, importers and exporters. Meanwhile, perhaps the most prominent trade agreement in the African continent is the COMESA, which is the Common Market Agreement for Eastern and Southern Africa, as a preferential trade area that aims to establish a free trade area between member states to become a custom union and then a common market. Egypt became a member of COMESA in 1998, along with 19 active member states. On the other hand, Egypt, as a member of COMESA, exempts goods and products bearing COMESA certificates of origin completely from customs duties and any other fees and taxes of similar effect. With reference to the rules of origin of the agreement, customs exemptions are applied to all imports of goods originally from member states with an added value of up to 45%. In March 2018, after 2 years of continuous negotiations, African heads of state and government signed in Kigali, Rwanda, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is the largest trade agreement in the world, and it entered into force on May 30th, 2019, with the ratification of 22 countries, where Egypt was among the first countries that signed and ratified this convention.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and we're glad to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, a number of trade agreements that link Egypt with 55 African states, in addition, of course, to the recent African Continental Free Trade Agreement. How do you see the significance of Egyptian-African trade and the importance of the Continental Free Trade Agreement on trade between Egypt and African states?
Yes, it is a very important step for our foreign trade. We are trying since decades to liberalize our foreign trade. Let me astonish you by saying that it was Gamal Abdel Nasser who started freeing our foreign trade by joining the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, GATT, then the World Trade Organization. We are a very important member there. We have a free trade agreement with the Arab world, with Africa, and with the European Union,
yes,
with a market of 2,000 million inhabitants. Mm-hmm. This is a big opportunity for any investor who wants to come and invest in Egypt. As of Africa, of course, we started by what you just mentioned about being a member with the COMESA. We joined the COMESA after it was established by 10 years. Then we jumped in. And since the year 2000, we totally dismantled all the custom duties among the 21 countries. Then, when our president became the chairman of the African Union, we jumped on another larger. We make one big free trade area of the whole African continent, with more than 50 countries. This is 1,200 million inhabitants. And of course, it is the poorest continent in the world, and we want in order to make trade in Africa, you have to think about investment in Africa, because Africa still has only raw material, and we need to invest on those raw materials in order to industrialize those countries. And we still have long homework to be done.
Yes.
Transport in Africa needs to be ameliorated. The banking system, the bureaucracy is killing many investors, and we are doing a marvelous job in all these dimensions and others.
Yes.
Egypt and its fund for investment in Africa and partnership is doing its best. We have a lot of experts among the whole African countries, and we are doing our best in order to make a very good deal with Africa to help them and to help ourselves at the same time.
Yes. Well, Ambassador Bayoumi, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement makes the African continent or market open to Egyptian products, giving it competitiveness, and especially for its prices compared to the prices of Indian and Chinese products. What's your take on that, sir?
This is exactly what we're encouraging our business community and our exporters to realize, that now we have the whole African continent. We can reach it with our commodities exempted from any custom duties or any trade barriers. And even if we see that there are barriers, we can negotiate about it and make our life easier there. This also the treatment among Arab countries and the treatment between Egypt and the European community also. This is very important. The free trade area, it means that no borders, no custom duty, then we can jump there. And this needs to change the whole mentality in our industrialists, not to concentrate on the 1,100,000 Egyptians, but to see that export is the answer for all or many of our problems in order to expand our economy all over the world.
Yes. Well, Egypt currently is working to finish the linkage between the northern tip of the continent with the southern top through several projects, on top of which is the road between Cairo and Cape Town in South Africa. Now, how do you believe that this road will facilitate the transfer of goods and products between different countries throughout the African continent?
This is one of our dreams. I worked on this program or project since 1977, when our ambassador in Rome sent us a good study to establish autostrade between Alexandria and South Africa.
Yes.
And by the way, it is a very good project that many businessmen would ask us to let them establish it and to make use of it.
Yes.
Another dream is the railways between Egypt and Sudan, and then to continue in the continent. Many projects like that. Now we are connecting the electrical net also from Egypt to Sudan to Congo to Tanzania. Hopefully with Ethiopia when they are ready to deal with us. So we are in a position to export the African electricity to Europe through Egypt. And we started now to establish electric line between Egypt and Greece and Cyprus. This will make the whole continent able to export energy to Europe easily. Many ideas like that, but the good thing that now we have the presidential level following and leading all these efforts in order to make it real.
Yes. Sir, would African countries lower both their imports and exports to Europe and Asia and work on improving the made in Africa products?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I always say, and all of us, we are saying that Africa is really not well treated from the developed countries.
Yes.
And it is astonishing to realize that the flow of money going out of Africa to Europe and the States and the developed countries is much more than Africa receives as a result of this. Because Africa is paying its debt, it's paying its invoice of imports, much more than investment Africa is receiving or the invoice of its export. This has to be changed, and thank God that the idea is already catched by the Europeans, thanks to the Egyptian efforts. China is also keen to cooperate with us in order to invest in Africa with foreign finance and Egyptian experience. And I hope we shall see soon some projects in order to encourage to repeat this successful idea.
So, sir, do you agree that Africa is a promising market for Egypt in the current period?
Absolutely. And since we joined the Commission, our trade to Africa was tripled, especially our exports. And the balance of payment is, or the balance of the trade is in our favor. So it's a good experience. But let me confess that it's not big as our trade with Europe or our trade with China or the Arab world. So, but if we want to expand this, we have to think seriously to invest on establishing small industries, food industry, canned food, forestry, timber and wood. Many things are waiting for us, and it's really a good chance for us if we want to follow this experience.
Do you consider the Egyptian market a window for Europe to access the African market?
This is what we are telling our partners, like what the president was telling his counterpart in Cyprus a couple of days ago, that if you export to Africa directly, you will pay taxes. Like what you were saying from a while. If you produce in Egypt, then export your commodities to Africa, you will be exempted from any custom duties or any trade barriers. And this makes the cost of your exports much more lower than the actual situation.
Sir, what are the main challenges and obstacles facing Egyptian-African trade in your opinion?
We need more communication. We need to be present. And Egypt is present in every single African country. And really, I always appreciate what our president did when he went to Equatorial Guinea. I was ambassador in Equatorial Guinea, but they called me non-resident ambassador because you can't have a residence in Equatorial Guinea during my time in the 90s. I was resident in Cameroon and covering Equatorial Guinea. Our president went there with the Arab constructor. He built an embassy. Now we have a charming lady as ambassador there.
Yes.
So this is the way. Another thing that transport in Africa needs to be ameliorated. If you want to go to Cameroon, this takes you less than 2 hours per flight. We do it either through Paris or through
Ambassador Bayoumi, can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Sir, what do you think is the best way to invest in the African continent for Egyptian businessmen? How can we encourage Egyptian businessmen to further expand investments in the African continent?
We need to establish a big developed countries have sort of a system where an exporter can depend on the bank to finance him and to cover whatever he is doing. And if he exports and he makes some losses, then the bank will cover it, whether he's trading or investing. We need to establish banks to do this job immediately. And we need to make transport easier. We need to establish a banking system in Africa. We need to teach Africa how to deal bureaucracy how to deal with the investors. And I am really meeting some trainees from many African countries in many fields, whether in Nasser Academy or in our diplomatic institute or anywhere else.
Yes. Finally, Ambassador Bayoumi, how do you assess Egypt's leading role in the African continent during this period, during the current period? Well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the foreign minister. Many thanks for your insights, sir. And dear viewers, now we go back to our special reports. Egypt said it plans to manufacture 1 billion doses of the China Sinovac vaccine, saying it would become the Middle East and Africa's biggest vaccine producer. Details.
Egypt said that it plans to manufacture 1 billion doses a year of China's Sinovac vaccine, claiming it would become the Middle East and Africa's biggest vaccine producer. Under the deal with the Chinese pharmaceutical company, a factory in Cairo will produce more than 200 million doses per year to cover national needs. The second factory will produce 3 million doses per year, or around 1 billion a year, with a view to exporting the vaccine for COVID-19 and responding to demand in Africa. The move would make Egypt the biggest vaccine producer in the Middle East and Africa. Heba Wali, the doctor in charge of the project, said that Egyptian Drug Authority had given it go ahead and that 1 million doses have already been distributed in Egypt. Chinese experts had previously traveled to Egypt to inspect equipment and materials for producing the Sinovac vaccine at factories belonging to state firm Vaxera. Egypt, with a population of over 100 million, has officially recorded more than 288,000 COVID-19 cases, included over 16,700 deaths. Some 7.5 million Egyptians have had at least one vaccine.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and still with our special reports. Ethiopia said that more than 158 trucks had entered war-torn Tigray over the past 2 days after the United Nations warned of a looming catastrophe in the northern region. We have more details in this report.
The African Union on Friday urged Ethiopia's government to step up efforts to ensure humanitarian access to the Tigray region to prevent starvation. This as aid workers struggle to reach desperate populations. Northern Ethiopia has been hit by violence since November, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent troops into Tigray to topple the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the regional ruling party, claiming that the move came in response to attacks on army camps. According to the United Nations, although Abiy promised a swift victory, the war was dragged on for months, triggering a humanitarian crisis in Tigray that has left 400,000 people facing famine-like conditions. African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security told reporters on Friday they want more to be done to ensure that people were not starving. He added that women and children must not continue to be victims of a conflict that is not of their own doing. His comments came a day after the United Nations warned that the humanitarian situation in Tigray would worsen dramatically and to deadly effect unless Abiy's government lifts an aid blockade and allows relief material to reach cut-off populations. The TPLF have accused Abiy's government of obstructing aid convoys and driving a desperate population into famine. This as relief workers battle security woes and patriotic delays.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and that brings us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.